I swear to God I can still hear the screams. Some nights, when the wind shakes the trees outside my window and the shadows crawl across my ceiling, I'm right back there on Maple Street, clutching the edge of my curtain, watching that house burn with a kind of fire you can't see. Just rage, just despair, just everything twisted and ugly boiling over in one boy's hands. You think you know your neighborhood. You think you know the families, the kids playing tag in the yards, the women waving while carrying groceries, the smell of barbecue smoke drifting on summer nights. You think you know your street, but I didn't know. Or maybe I didn't want to, and because of that, I can't unsee what I saw. It was Rebecca's house. Rebecca, my neighbor, my friend, the woman I'd shared sugar and coffee with, the woman I'd sat next to at school concerts when our kids were little. She had 3 children, 2 sweet girls, Chloe and Madison, and Ethan, her oldest, her only son, 14 years old. But Ethan hadn't been a normal boy for a long, long time. I remember the first time I noticed something was wrong. He must have been 8, maybe 9. Rebecca brought him to our 4th of July block party. All the kids were running wild, sparklers in their hands, sticky popsicles dripping down their arms, laughing, shrieking, the kind of noise that makes you roll your eyes but secretly love because it means everything is safe. And there was Ethan, off to the side holding a knife he had no business holding, carving into the wooden picnic table like it was nothing. Not initials, not doodles, angry shapes, jagged lines, a face with no eyes, and the whole time he didn't blink, he didn't smile, he didn't even look up when the fireworks started. People noticed. I noticed. But what did we do? We laughed nervously. Someone joked, he's going to be an artist. Someone else said, boys will be boys. Rebecca's smile was tight, like she wanted to believe it, but her eyes begged for someone to say it wasn't normal, begged for someone to help. None of us did. By the time he was 11, he stopped going to school. At first, Rebecca told everyone she was homeschooling him, said the teachers didn't understand him, that the system was broken, that Ethan was too smart or too different for the other kids. And we nodded, because it was easier to believe that than to ask the hard questions. But we all heard what went on inside that house. The walls aren't thick on Maple Street. You could hear it, midnight, screaming, the sound of things breaking, a boy's voice, harsh and cruel, yelling at his mother like she was the child. Sometimes it was her voice too, pleading, begging him to calm down. My husband used to say, don't get involved, it's their business, and I told myself he was right. But deep down, I knew something was festering in there, something that wouldn't stay hidden forever. For 3 years, Ethan didn't set foot in a classroom. 3 years. While my daughter packed her bag every morning, while she worried about exams and crushes and volleyball tryouts, Ethan sat behind those drawn curtains, playing violent games all night, sleeping all day, sinking deeper into a darkness nobody wanted to touch. And then the whispers started. Kids talk, you know. They said Ethan bragged online, said he hated everyone, said school was a joke and people would pay someday. But what do kids know, right? They exaggerate. Except this time, they weren't exaggerating. They were warning us. Rebecca tried. God, she tried. I saw her work 2 jobs, dragging herself home at midnight with grocery bags cutting into her hands, only to walk into that storm of a house. She'd hold her girls close, whispering to them like a shield, while Ethan stood in the doorway, glaring at her like she was trespassing in his world. I should have called someone. Child services, the police, anyone. But I didn't. None of us did. Because in towns like ours, you mind your own business. You wave, you gossip, but you don't interfere. And because of that, we all failed her. Then came that night. It was a Tuesday, late summer. The air was heavy, the kind that makes your skin stick and your temper short. I was folding laundry in front of the TV when I heard it. A scream. Not just a fight, not just raised voices. The kind of scream that rips through bone, that makes you drop whatever you're holding because every instinct in your body says something is terribly, terribly wrong. I ran to the window. Rebecca's porch light was flickering, shadows jerking across the yard. And then I heard her. Her voice cracked and desperate. Ethan, put it down. Please put it down. My blood ran cold. I knew in that instant what was happening. And I froze. God forgive me, I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't call. I just stood there with my hand pressed to the glass as the chaos inside that house spilled into the night. There was the sound of glass breaking, Chloe crying, Madison's tiny voice begging, stop, Ethan, stop. And Rebecca, over and over, her words unraveling into sobs. And then silence. A silence so thick it suffocated me. The sirens came minutes later, red and blue lights cut through the dark, officers stormed inside. And then I saw Ethan come out in handcuffs, barefoot, his shirt stained with something I don't want to describe. His face was blank. Not angry, not crying, just empty. Like there was nothing left inside him at all. Rebecca stumbled out after him, clutching Chloe and Madison. Their faces were streaked with tears, their little hands gripping her like she was the only thing keeping them alive. And I just stood there, hiding behind my curtain, a coward, watching everything unravel. People keep saying now that Ethan's just a sick kid, that prison isn't the answer, that he needs help. And maybe they're right, but all I can think about is how we had years to help him, years to notice the signs, years to step in before he picked up that knife. And we did nothing. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't out of the blue. This was a slow-motion tragedy, warning us every step of the way, begging for intervention. And we all turned the other way. Now, every time I close my eyes, I hear Rebecca's voice pleading. I hear Chloe scream. I see Madison's tiny face twisted in terror. And I see Ethan's eyes, flat and empty, as he walked past me in handcuffs. I wonder if I'll ever sleep again. You'd think the story begins and ends with that night. The knife, the screams, the flashing lights, but that would be too easy. The truth is, it started years before, slow as ivy creeping up a wall, twisting tighter, darker, until it choked the life out of everything. And if I tell it right, maybe you'll understand why I can't forgive myself. Maple Street looks ordinary from the outside. Split-level homes with neat lawns, faded basketball hoops leaning against garages, kids riding bikes in circles until the streetlights come on. If you drive by, you'd think we were picture perfect, the kind of neighborhood where nothing bad ever happens. But ordinary places have cracks, and behind those cracks, things fester. Rebecca's house was one of those cracks. It didn't happen all at once. At first it was little things. Ethan was a quiet kid, sure, but not shy. There's a difference. Shy kids look down, avoid your eyes. Ethan looked right at you, stared through you, like he was peeling back your skin to see what was underneath. He never joined the other kids in games. He didn't laugh at their jokes. If anything, he looked annoyed by them, like they were wasting his time. Rebecca used to laugh it off. "He's just independent," she'd say, ruffling his hair when he glared at her. But you could tell she was worried. I'd catch her glancing over when Ethan walked away, her smile slipping the second he was out of sight. When he was 10, he started smashing things. I know because I heard it. Thin walls, remember? The thud of fists against doors, the crash of plates hitting the floor, the shouts that followed. Rebecca would come over the next day with sunglasses on, claiming she was tired, but her arms were covered in scratches. Little Chloe, barely 6 then, once whispered to my daughter that Ethan gets mad at mommy. She said it like it was normal, like it was part of life. And still, none of us said a word. By 11, he dropped out of school altogether. Rebecca claimed she was homeschooling him. But I never once saw a book in his hands. What I did see were glowing screens, TV, laptop, video games blaring violence through the thin summer air. Sometimes I'd catch him in the yard late at night, digging holes in the dirt with his bare hands, muttering to himself. One time, I found a dead squirrel in my garden, throat cut clean. I told myself it must have been a cat, but in the pit of my stomach, I knew. People whispered. At church, at the diner, in line at the grocery store, everyone knew something wasn't right, but no one wanted to be the one to make the call. No one wanted to be the neighbor who stirred up trouble. He's just going through a phase, they said. Rebecca's doing her best. And God, she really was. She worked herself to the bone, waitressing by day, cleaning offices by night, never once complaining. I'd see her stumble home past midnight, shoes in her hands, hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. She'd still pack lunches for the girls, still kiss them goodnight, still try to coax Ethan out of his room. I heard her once, through the open kitchen window, her voice soft, pleading, "Sweetheart, please, just come eat dinner with us, just once." His response was a bang so loud it rattled the glass. The girls learned to tiptoe. Chloe and Madison became shadows in their own home, giggling only when Ethan wasn't around, whispering secrets under the covers because laughter seemed dangerous. They clung to Rebecca, those poor babies, clung like she was the only solid thing in a house that shifted beneath their feet every day. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she held that house together with her bare hands, day after day, while the rest of us just watched. Because make no mistake, we watched. We saw the drawn curtains, heard the shouting, saw the bruises that just happened. We saw it all and told ourselves lies to sleep at night. By 13, Ethan barely looked human anymore. He'd grown tall, lanky, with shadows under his eyes from staying up all night. He walked like the world owed him something, shoulders hunched, fists clenched. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was sharp, cruel, meant to cut. I once heard him tell Rebecca, in the driveway where everyone could hear, "You're nothing, I hate you." And she just stood there, silent, like she'd already heard it 1,000 times. It was around then that the online stuff started. Kids whispered about his posts, how he bragged about wanting to hurt people, how he said school was a waste, how he talked about knives. I brushed it off, told myself kids exaggerate, that it was just edgy nonsense. But then one of Chloe's friends showed my daughter a message he'd written. "One day you'll see. One day they'll all bleed." I should have called someone. God help me, I should have. But calling would have meant stepping into their world, dragging my family into it, risking Ethan's anger. And I was scared. We were all scared. The police came once. Just once. Someone must have called about the noise, the screaming that went on for hours. They knocked, Rebecca opened the door, makeup smeared, eyes swollen, and told them everything was fine. And they left, just like that. The lights faded, the sirens disappeared, and life went on. That was the chance. That was the moment when everything could have changed. And it slipped through our fingers. The weeks leading up to that Tuesday were the worst. The heat was unbearable, thick enough to choke you, and the whole street seemed restless. I saw Ethan outside more, pacing the yard at night, sometimes holding something metallic in his hand that caught the streetlight. A knife, I'm sure of it now. He'd mutter to himself, kicking at the ground, glaring at the houses like we'd all betrayed him somehow. Rebecca looked like a ghost. She'd lost weight, her clothes hanging off her frame, her face pale and hollow. The girls barely came outside anymore, just peeking from behind curtains, their eyes wide and frightened. One afternoon, Rebecca came to my door, asking if I had any Tylenol. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the bottle. She looked me right in the eye, and I swear she was begging me for more than painkillers, begging me to see her, to help. And I didn't. That's what eats me alive now. When the night finally came, when Ethan finally snapped, it wasn't a surprise. Not really. We'd all been waiting for the explosion, praying it wouldn't come, pretending it couldn't. But deep down, we knew. The signs had been there for years, carved into wood, written in bruises, screamed through the walls, and we ignored them. So when people say now, how could this happen? How could a boy do that to his own family? I want to scream. Because it didn't just happen. It grew, it festered, it rotted in plain sight. And we let it. I keep replaying those last weeks in my head, wondering if one phone call, one intervention, one act of courage could have changed the ending. Maybe Ethan would have gotten help. Maybe Rebecca would have been spared that night of terror. Maybe Chloe and Madison would have slept peacefully in their beds instead of crying in their mother's arms while the police dragged their brother away. But we'll never know. Because we didn't act. Now Maple Street is quiet again. too quiet. The curtains are still drawn at Rebecca's house, though she's gone now, staying with her sister out of town. The porch light doesn't flicker anymore. The yard is overgrown, weeds crawling through the cracks in the driveway, and every time I walk past, I feel the weight of what happened pressing down on me. Ethan's gone too, locked away somewhere getting help. That's what they say, that he's in a juvenile facility, that doctors are working with him. Maybe it's true. Maybe he can be saved, but when I close my eyes I don't see a boy. I see a void. And I don't know if you can save emptiness. What I do know is this: silence is a choice. And it's the choice we made over and over until it was too late, and I will carry that silence with me for the rest of my life. You want to know what hell sounds like? It isn't fire or screaming demons or whatever picture Sunday sermons paint. Hell is silence after chaos. Hell is when the screaming stops and you don't know if that means everyone is safe or if everyone is gone. That night, Tuesday night, it started like any other. That's what haunts me most. It was so ordinary. I'd made dinner, folded laundry, scrolled through the news on my phone. The girls across the street had been playing earlier, chasing each other in the yard while Rebecca sat on the porch, head in her hands. Ethan hadn't shown himself all day, but that wasn't unusual. He was like a shadow you sometimes forgot existed, until you remembered too late. The air was heavy, humid, thick enough to choke. I remember thinking about turning on the fan, something so small, so stupid, and then the first scream cut through the night. It wasn't just any scream, it was Rebecca's, hoarse, guttural, desperate, the kind of sound a mother makes when she realizes her child is about to destroy everything. Ethan, no, please put it down. I froze. My hands dropped the laundry I was folding, and the whole pile slid to the floor like it was nothing, because in that moment nothing mattered but that voice. Then came the girls. Chloe's shriek, high and piercing, Madison crying, begging, stop, Ethan, stop, and then the unmistakable crash of glass shattering. I ran to the window. The porch light flickered on and off like some cruel signal. Shadows jerked across the walls inside. I could see movement, fast, frantic. I could hear more screams, footsteps pounding, a chair scraping across the floor, and then a sound that turned my blood to ice, the metallic scrape of a knife against tile. I didn't move. God forgive me, I didn't move. My phone was right there on the table, but my body betrayed me. I just stood at the window, hand pressed against the glass, staring into that storm. Rebecca's voice rose again, shrill and broken. Think of your sisters. Ethan, don't do this. Silence. For a moment, a horrible moment, everything went still. Then came the thud of something heavy hitting the wall. A scream, a child sobbing, Rebecca crying out, no, and after that, chaos so complete I can barely put it into words. The sirens came fast. Someone else must have called. I didn't, I couldn't, I was frozen. But somewhere, some brave soul picked up the phone, and within minutes the night was alive with flashing red and blue. The cruisers tore down Maple Street, tires screeching. Officers jumped out, guns drawn, voices booming commands into the dark. Drop the weapon. Step away. I saw it all through my window, every detail etched into me like a scar. Ethan appeared in the doorway, barefoot, his shirt smeared with something that made my stomach twist. His face, blank. No rage, no fear, no regret, just nothing. A void in human form. The officers swarmed him, pinned him, wrestled the knife from his hand. He didn't resist. He didn't fight. He just let them drag him away, eyes staring past everything, past all of us, as if he'd already left this world behind. And then, Rebecca came out. She stumbled through the doorway, hair wild, face streaked with tears. Chloe clung to her side, sobbing, while Madison hid her face in her mother's shirt. Rebecca's hands shook as she held them close, trembling so hard I thought she might collapse. Her eyes darted everywhere, at the neighbors who'd gathered on their porches, at the police lights flashing across the street, at the empty spot where Ethan had been. When her gaze landed on me, just for a second, I thought I saw accusation. Maybe it was in my head, maybe it was guilt already digging into my bones. But it felt like she was screaming without words. Why didn't you help? Why didn't anyone help? The paramedics went in. They carried out a chair splintered down the middle, glass crunching under their boots. They checked Rebecca, checked the girls. No one was dead, thank God. But no one walked out of that house whole either. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers for weeks afterward. Some said Ethan had meant to kill them. Others said he just wanted to scare them, that he'd snapped but didn't know what he was doing. The truth lies somewhere in the middle, and maybe we'll never know. The police called it an incident. The papers used words like domestic disturbance, youth in crisis. They made it sound sterile, clinical, like it was just another line in the police blotter. But I know what it was. It was a reckoning. And here's the part no one wants to admit. We all saw it coming. For years, Ethan carved his darkness into wood, into walls, into the very air of that house. We heard the screams, we saw the bruises. We watched Rebecca wither under the weight of a child she couldn't control, and we did nothing. We folded our laundry. We mowed our lawns. We nodded politely when she smiled with cracked lips and hollow eyes. And we let it happen. Now Rebecca's gone. She moved out a month later, took the girls to her sisters in another town. The house sits empty, curtains drawn, weeds climbing through the cracks in the driveway. It's like a ghost, looming over Maple Street, reminding us every day of what we didn't do. Ethan. He's in a juvenile facility. That's what they say. That he's getting help. Maybe he is. Maybe doctors can peel back the layers of anger and emptiness and find the boy who got lost inside. But when I close my eyes, I don't see a boy. I see those eyes, flat and lifeless, staring past me as the cops dragged him away. I see the knife glinting in the porch light. And I hear Rebecca's voice, begging him, begging anyone to stop. Do you want to know what haunts me most? It isn't the screams. It isn't even the silence afterward. It's the little things. The sound of Rebecca's laugh years ago before everything. The way Chloe once offered me a dandelion from my yard, smiling shyly. The way Madison skipped on the sidewalk, her pigtails bouncing. The way Ethan, when he was very small, clutched a stuffed bear so tight his knuckles turned white. That boy, that little boy, he was in there once. And we lost him. So when people ask me, how could this happen on Maple Street? How could this happen here? I tell them the truth. It didn't happen that night. It happened every night before, when we chose silence over action. It happened in every moment we looked away. Hell isn't fire. Hell isn't demons. Hell is the sound of your neighbor's screams when you realize you could have stopped them years ago. And I live in hell now.